Before I tell you exactly what occurred, there's some things you should know. This was never how it was supposed to happen, but I guess being born on Mars made me naive to how the rest of the species developed. Still, I don't think anything could have prepared me for this day, and perhaps even more so, the ones that came after. I was conceived on the way to Mars in zero gravity. I was born 3 months after a human foot first stepped on the surface of a planet other than Earth. I went through puberty in 1/3 Earth's gravity. And because of this lack of gravity, I'm taller, thinner, and far more coordinated in this environment than anyone my senior. My body was quite literally built for it. And since I was the first kid, I was a sort of case study, a celebrity even. Not only on Mars, but on Earth. Mars is packed full with Earth's greatest minds. Or at least the ones that were willing to venture over 100 million miles from their homes. Growing up around brilliant minds has its upsides, but in general, they tend to be quite preoccupied, so I spent the majority of my formative years alone. I read a lot, I did puzzles, played with Legos, and I spent my nights imagining what living on Earth might feel like. Eventually, after the bulk of the foundational work on the colony had finished, I convinced the head of robotics to designate one of the maintenance robots to me. R67, but I called him Ryan. Ryan wasn't designed for children, but he was my best friend nonetheless. He had answers to any question I had about the colony. He explained the nuclear fission energy system, the purpose of each safety measure, even the long-term goals of our civilization. By 13, I knew more about this place than most adults. But all good things must come to an end, and at 14, once more children had come around, it was decided that Ryan's energy consumption was too high to be used on one child. So when his battery depleted, they marked him as off-duty and added him to the stack of off-duty robots waiting on standby to be needed again. It's been 7 years since I last talked to Ryan. Not only was I the first human born off of Earth, but for the first 10 years of my life, the person nearest in age to me was my own mother. Until 10, I'd never met another child. You could say this made it particularly difficult for me to relate to others. But don't let me fool you. I love the people of Mars, more than I ever realized back when I was there. I had so much more in common with them than my teenaged mind had believed. And I didn't fully realize the depth of that love until I left. Part 1, 2052. It started as an ordinary Tuesday. "Jasper, get over here," I yelled as the overstimulated 12-year-old ran in circles through the recreation dome. "Jasper, come on." Finally, he ran over. "Sorry, Ash," he chirped back with his squeaky, naturally helium-loaded voice. Almost everyone calls me Ash, by the way. It's short for Astra, which means of the stars. "It's alright," I said, laughing at his genuine apology. "One more try, then we gotta go, okay?" I dribbled the basketball twice and gently lobbed it toward the 15-foot-tall rim. Jasper lunges with his prepubescent 6-foot-tall frame and pushes off the ground some 20 feet away from the hoop. The ball glides slowly in this gravity. Jasper's body does the same. He climbs to his 5-foot vertical, reaching his hands just above the rim as he tries to grab the ball, but misses. "Shoot!" he yelled as he reached the ground. We made our way through the connecting halls, smiling at everyone as we went. I know almost everyone's face, but surprisingly names can still be difficult. 10,000 people may not seem like a lot compared to the bloated super cities of Earth, but the human brain seems to have a limit on how many people it can remember. But everyone knows Jasper and I. Like I said, I was the first kid, and Jasper was the second. Even though we were already late, I took the long way, staying along the outer edge instead of cutting through the middle. "Mr. Young was telling us about Earth again." "That's fun. What did you learn?" "Well, I still don't understand how they can just go outside. I mean, I understand oxygen and atmosphere and all that, but it seems crazy." "Yeah, it is crazy. My dad explained it to me like this when I was your age, and it made a lot more sense." Jasper's eyebrows tilted as he focused. On Earth, there are people that have fish as pets. They fill up a tank with water and various other ingredients that enable the fish to survive. The tank to the fish is like the colony to us. If someone doesn't maintain the tank, the fish will die. So the ocean the lake is like a giant fish tank and Earth is like a planet-sized colony? Yeah, in a way. But the tank will never be their true home. And Mars will never be ours. Jasper looked off solemnly. It depends on your definition of home. But yes, Mars doesn't naturally breed life. In this scenario, we are the fish in the tank. We just maintain our own tank. I want to go to Earth. Jasper looked through the blurry ice-shielded window. Me too, buddy. What do you think it would feel like? This made me laugh. It's quite the deep conversation for a commute with a 12-year-old. Well, I don't know. I've heard a lot about the sun, the grass and the trees, and how they allow you to breathe. How life fills the air and birds glide through the wind. I've heard the ocean never stops. That you can stand at the edge with your toes dipped in, and you can look out, and it never ends. And if you choose, you never have to be indoors again. I've heard that there's so many fellow humans that in 1,000 lifetimes you could never meet them all. Wow. If it's so great, why do they all fight each other? I don't know. I guess with all that beauty comes darkness. Like Natalie? Alright, you better get that out of your system now, kid. Finally, we made it to the door. I slowly opened it. Hey Natalie, Jasper's ready for you. I guess we're starting 10 minutes later than usual. Nobody mentioned that to me, Astra. I guess so, I said. She snaps her head toward Jasper like a venomous snake. Jasper? Do I have to tell you again? Sit down when you enter. But we were talking. Hey, all I need from you is I'm sorry, and it won't happen again. Don't worry, Jasper. Nobody takes her seriously. I whispered to him under my breath. Excuse me? Sorry, what? I didn't get that, but I really gotta go. Important business. I shut the door before she had a chance to respond, leaving poor Jasper alone to fend for himself. It's strange, even on Mars we have people that live in their own funny little worlds. I've been doing apprenticeships in the astrophysics department, the history department, and the electrical department. Today I'm with electrical. It's usually the most boring, but it's nice to know how the entire place functions. The electrical department is about a 10-minute walk from Natalie the Tyrant and her hellish quarters. I passed my mom on the way and gave her a cross-eyed smirk. She stuck her tongue out at me. Davey is the head of power, and he's the one I've been shadowing. He's a slender, tan guy with a thick British accent. He's tan largely because he's a big fan of the sunroom, a room with a giant light that is literally designed to mimic the sun's effects. Davey has a love-hate relationship with the room. He loves it because of how good it feels, but the amount of energy that it takes to power is a bit of a nightmare for his department. I knocked on the door with Davey's name as I was already opening it. It's perfect timing. We gotta head to nuclear. It's testing day, he said matter-of-factly in his fading British accent. Testing day is when we put the system through potentially dangerous scenarios to see how it holds up. Davey led the way. So how's your day been? He asked. Just handed Jasper over to Natalie. Poor kid. I still can't figure out what's stuck up that woman's ass. But as the mood was lighthearted, something strange happened. The habitat warning systems all started blaring at once. Then, in an instant, the lights went dark. Davey stopped for only a second, waiting for something that never came. He turned his head to me. Why isn't the backup working? In a lazy plop, oxygen masks fell from the little metal doors on the ceiling. Ryan told me many years ago that the hatches were designed to release when the power deactivated. It's a simple mechanism. They're connected to the main power lines, so as long as there's power, the hatches are set to shut. The moment the current stops, they open. But despite the fallen masks, Davey didn't reach for one. He just started sprinting. Part 2. I followed Davey closely. Faces blurred past as we ran. I could feel the fear in the air, but I didn't notice anyone outright panicking. After all, most of them had at one point been suspended in infinite space for months on their journey here, so I guess they're not strangers to fear. Davey slams through the door to the control room. A horde of people stand around. Why didn't the backup take over? Davey blurted. It was a solar flare, sir. Look at the sky. Davey glances out the distorted window. Colorful lights fill the horizon. Pink and green auroras. A telltale that a solar flare disrupted the planet's magnetic field. Davey shakes his head. It still should have taken over. Where's the battery? Connecting now, sir. A monitor lights with a handful of error codes. Davey stares intensely. Merely seconds later, it's the backup ignition system. Was it on? Yes, a voice said from the back. We were prepping it for testing. Right, of course. Okay. We should have 8 hours of oxygen at least. We can worry about internal habitat cooling once oxygen is sorted. I need a team to bring the replacement part to Outdoor 3, and I want 3 volunteers to come outside with me. I want this done in 45 minutes. Sam? Davey turned to the 40-something woman with chestnut hair and heavy eye bags. Find someone from each division. Everyone should be following Emergency Plan C. With that, they scattered off in all directions. Anyone who's left, get a jump on the backup fission reactors. Solar will be fine for a while, but if for some reason another one hits, we're in trouble. The colony, for the first time in as long as I can remember, was silent. The fans inside every vent, that incessant noise you could never escape from, was gone. In its place was an eerie ring, as if my ears were confused, unaccustomed to the sound of nothing, fighting to find what has always been there. Davey looked over his shoulder at me. Ash, why don't you go find your parents? He was already turning to leave before he finished speaking. Wait, I stopped him. Let me come with you on the walk. It's a simple fix, I can help. That's not really the point. Davey stopped himself. I think he noticed a look in my eyes, one that contained an urge to finally feel some sort of purpose in the colony. He nodded. Okay, but tell your parents you forced me. He smiled, then started sprinting. Me and 2 others followed close behind. Davey had a calming aura about him. You could see the distress ease in people as they saw him run by. Simply knowing he was on the case calmed them, calmed me as well. The colony is a series of larger dome rooms connected by hallways. At the center is the largest dome. This is where the colony assembles and community dinners are hosted. It expands in all directions from there. The control room is in the largest final circle, on the outer edge of the colony, the furthest lane on the track, if you will. Outpost Door 3 is in that same circle, but on the exact opposite side of the control room. We didn't run for long before Davey stopped, somewhat unexpectedly. We faced a door, one I'd never been through. On the door, do not enter, authorized personnel only. The key fob scanner that normally illuminated with a red light was completely dead. Davey pulled a large keychain from his pocket, quickly sifted through the 20+ seemingly identical keys, grabbed one satisfactorily, and slid it into the door. This door, without a doubt, leads to the underground tunnels Ryan told me about way back when. The moment Davey opened the door, a gust of ice-cold, deoxygenated air slammed into us. But he didn't hesitate. We shuffled in. We descended the metal staircase about 15 feet into darkness, the air getting harder to breathe with each step. As the door shut, the blackness consumed us. Nothing in any direction. It was darker than the back of my own eyelids, and colder than the freezers. I could hear someone opening something metal, like a little door or something, and a moment later, a blinding beam of light ignited. I cover my eyes with my hand. The light quickly shines on a metal box mounted on the wall. The door is wide open and 3 neatly stacked flashlights sit inside. I turned my flashlight toward the tunnel the moment I grabbed it. The beam of light is the only thing illuminating the barren tunnel. Chills ran through me. It's a strange feeling living somewhere your entire life and then suddenly seeing a new part of it for the first time as a full-grown adult. It seems to go on forever. In the distance, there's an outline of a man. Fear struck my nervous system, but Davey ran right up to it. The closer we got, the clearer things became. It was never a man at all. It's a robot. Ryan comes to mind immediately. The memories came flooding in. Not just of Ryan, but of a time when robots outnumbered humans, back when the above ground was still being expanded. But for the last 5 years, construction has been fully contained underground, and since it was decided that it would be best to have humans do every task that can be done by a human, the robots are only used in dangerous situations, which almost always happens to be outside or underground. The general morale definitely improved once people started having more important duties. But I still long for the time when we worked hand in hand with the robots. I'm not sure why. I guess sometimes I felt I had more in common with them. Maybe because, like me, they didn't choose to be here. Davey walks up to the humanoid and clicks the power button located on the back of its neck. Immediately it boots up. They must have been protected underground, he said. The robot's voice startles the crew. No connection. Manual mode only. What is your name? Davey asked. R1808, the robot responded. R1808 is a much newer model than Ryan was. The cosmetic differences are minor, but to me they're quite obvious. Alright, R1808, we need your help. There was a solar flare and we need to replace the ignition for the solar power transition. Could you follow us? Yes, of course, sir. You might be wondering, why would an American company use British voices for their robots? Unfortunately, the answer is quite boring. British voices were determined to be the most trustworthy and calming. Davy broke out into a jog, and once again we all followed. R1808 was close behind. The unmistakable sound of its metal feet making contact with the ground filled me with bouts of nostalgia. Suddenly, I was 12 years old, running through the hall with Ryan on my tail, getting yelled at by Natalie for one reason or another. How strange is it? The things that lock in our minds, locked away until something reminds you of them, and then suddenly they feel like they were just yesterday. Part 3. After 15 minutes and passing a couple hundred of R1808's identical twins, we finally stopped. I gasped as completely as I could, yet it still felt like I was getting mere fragments of the oxygen required to run my body. The majority of the oxygen vents down here aren't in use since humans don't use this area yet. It's another way of conserving energy, and it's only lightly heated down here for the same reason. Davy walks up to an identical door as the one we entered the tunnel from, and pushes it open. R1808 follows after asking permission. Warm air flooded the ice-cold stairwell. The shift in pressure nearly knocked me down. Stars filled my eyes as I ascended the steps, but what would have normally been a 35-minute zigzag through the maze of hallways and domes was condensed to a perfectly straight 15-minute jog. Just like that, we were at Outdoor 3, each of us still gasping as we helped each other put on the extravehicular mobility units, also known as spacesuits. By the time we finished, one of the guys tasked with finding the replacement parts arrived in a sweaty mess. His arms were full. Not only did he have the parts, but a toolbox too. His arms gave way, nearly dropping everything as he tried to set it down. We all grabbed something and Davy walked us into the airlock. My blood was pumping faster and faster. I latched the door shut behind me. Davy opens a metal panel that's flush in the wall and connects a set of backup batteries to the thick 12-gauge cords hanging below the monitors. The screen lights up immediately with various error messages. R1808 plugs into the system, and within moments the monitor lights up. Rebooting, it reads with the loading symbol spinning. It only spins for a moment though. A few seconds later, a large green box with the text "Ready" fills the monitor. The depressurization system is ready, sir. I've only ever been outside once in my life. It was a couple of years ago. After graduation, I was able to pick a prize of sorts. Something that is typically off limits. That requires too many resources to be ethical. Or in my case, something that is what we call unnecessarily dangerous. My choice of unnecessarily dangerous experiences was a Mars walk. It was without a doubt the most amazing yet simultaneously terrifying 30 minutes of my life. Knowing that the air around you, that the environment you're walking through is waiting to kill you the moment your suit fails. It's a hard feeling to explain. I would assume it's something like being miles deep in one of Earth's oceans with nothing but your diver suit and an oxygen tank. "Alright, is everyone ready?" Davy asked. We all nodded. "Good. 1808? Ready when you are, sir." "Does everyone know their role?" Again we all nodded. "Well, just to reiterate, Ash, you're with me. You're in charge of the part. 1808, I want you to connect to the system and run a code check. Make sure there aren't any other errors. Sven and Sarah, I want you to disassemble the protective casing." Everyone nods. "Okay, we're ready." R1808 begins. Initiating depressurization sequence in 3, 2, 1. Initiating. I couldn't feel a change internally. I could only tell that the walls and suit were being affected. Like a tension of sorts, followed by silence. Sound doesn't travel as well on Mars. Without the suit's walkies, we'd hardly be able to hear each other outside. A moment later, Davy opened the hatch. My mouth fell open the moment I stepped out. The red and green sky was infinitely brighter out here. Like the photos of auroras on Earth, but it was the entire sky. Our headlamps illuminated the way. Thankfully, we're only going to the solar panels. If we had to reach the nuclear fission reactors, it would have been over a mile of walking. Sarah and Sven approach the metal containers surrounding the solar panel's battery storage system. Sven hands the tools to Sarah as she unscrews a few bolts. There's a 40-mile-per-hour wind, which might sound like a lot, but since the atmosphere is something like 1/100th of Earth's, I can hardly even feel it. A few moments later, the cover is off and Davy is inspecting the old part. "Only seeing a few signs of wear. 1808, any other codes?" "No, the ignition took the brunt of the blow." "Good. Davey started disassembling the old ignition. There are a few tight bolts that are tough to reach with the massive gloves on his suit. Not without struggle, he nudges them loose and pulls out the old part. I immediately place the new one in his hand. He assembles it, and just like that, 1808, initiate reboot sequence. Initiating. But nothing happened. My gut sank. No lights illuminated through the window. Nothing but the auroras and the microscopic dust flying through the air. But then, in a blink, light shines through, and the colony is on again. I exhaled so deeply for a moment I was almost worried about the CO2 levels in my suit. I'm exaggerating, of course, but a smile was glued to my face for the rest of the walk. We actually did it. Little did I know, the real battle had yet to begin. We were about to face its wrath very soon. Conclusion. We made it back inside effortlessly, but the effects of the entire event lingered throughout the colony for quite some time. Everyone in the colony on a day-to-day basis understands logically that we aren't particularly safe here, but actually experiencing that fragility in real time was awful. We were met with applause when we entered the main dome at the heart of the colony. Immediately my mom ran up to me, lightly slapping me on the chest before hugging me. It was obvious why. The tears in her eyes didn't leave much room for interpretation. I went outside and I didn't even warn her. Dad was smiling, though. Not to say he wasn't afraid for me. I think he was just proud. He gave me a hug after Mom finally let go, and then we were quickly interrupted by the head of communications. "Hi everyone," she said through the long, thin microphone attached to the podium. "We just sent out a message to Earth. As you know, we're about 14 light minutes away, so we still have another 28 minutes at the very least before we should expect to hear anything back. I know what a lot of you are thinking, and you're right to. If Earth was hit by a solar flare as intensely or more than we were, the implications could be utterly catastrophic. But there's no reason to assume just yet, so let's all take this moment to be grateful. We are all here, alive, and with each other. And in an hour, if we have yet to hear anything, we can begin to discuss other scenarios. Thank you, everyone." With that, she grabbed her paper from the podium and walked off. 28 minutes, and as assumed, there was no response. After 1 hour, there was still nothing. After 1 day, 1 week, and 1 month, nothing. Until eventually people stopped believing there would ever be something. Things went on as they usually did. Everyone stuck to their duties, although certain jobs had very little to do without Earth. Primary one being the communications department. The strangest part to me was the loss of the internet. We no longer had any access to Earth's web. But it could just be a signal issue, I suppose. At least, that's what I tried to tell myself. 90 days after the solar flare. The isolation has been suffocating recently. It was one thing to be on Mars with an entire planet supporting you. It's another thing to be on Mars for no other reason than to continue surviving. The director of communications is back on stage. "The results have come in on the subject regarding a manned mission to Earth. 86% to 14. Vote yes. That means we're going. Is this a smart mission? Maybe not. Will it do us any good? Perhaps not. But I expected nothing else. There's a reason you all chose to come here. You're curious. You dare to adventure. Therefore, I hold no reservations. And with that, we'd like to ask for volunteers." Immediately, Mom looked at me. She knew exactly what I was thinking. To be continued.